Shabbat Shalom. Welcome back to the classroom. We have a long study ahead of us today. So hang on in there. I know it's a little bit warm. Please don't fall asleep. We don't want you missing any of the fun stuff. Let's jump in. The title of our study is High Places and Angry Gods. How many of you feel that God has ever been angry with you? Yeah, I felt it, dude.
Not angry,
Disappointed. Ouch. High places and angry gods. And how do we relate to God? How do we know what God's thinking about how we're living and what we're doing? High places and angry gods. We sang in the garden earlier, right? And walking and talking with God, which is a beautiful idea. But I want to ask you guys, when you guys spend time with God during your day, how do you do that? What does it look like for you? How many of you, maybe it's just quiet in your house, you have a cup of coffee and prayer in the morning, a cup of tea? How many of you go to a quiet room, away from the distractions, and spend time with Him, just read His book? Maybe you do it on the go. Maybe you got your earbuds. Maybe you got earbuds in and you're listening to messages, you're listening to music, and you're starting to worship as you go through your day. But how is it that you spend time with God? Is there a special place? Is there a special time? Maybe we forget to do it during the week and we just remember, oh, at least we have Shabbat. All right, at least there's Shabbat. I can spend time with Him then. And God gave us Shabbat so that we wouldn't get so busy with life. And we'll remember to trust Him. We'll remember to do that life with Him and meet with Him. Like I said, it's going to be a full study today. We're going back to the book of Genesis 1:1. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. Okay? We have the words there. In the beginning, God created the heavens, shamayim, and the earth, haaretz. Okay? We also see later in Genesis 2:5, the earth, we know that man was created from the dust of the earth, right, from the ground. But the word that's used here is different from haaretz. Haaretz is the earth. Okay? It says, Yehovah Elohim al haaretz Ve'adam ayin la'avot et ha'adamah. So you have there, let's see. You have there a few words that are a little bit different. Adam, right? Adam, we say that that's his name, but Adam means man. It's humanity, it's mankind. Adam. Okay? And it's interesting because Adam was made from the ground and he was brought in to work the ground. Adamah. Adamah. So Adam is man, Adamah comes from the ground. Man from the ground. But the ground and Eretz, the earth and the ground, those are also similar things. It's interesting to note that Adam wasn't created from just Haaretz, just from the earth. He was created from Adamah, a very special part of the earth. The top soil, the top layer of the earth, the dust of the earth, okay? And there, that's where all the nourishment is, where all the seed-producing things pop up from. So, Adam comes from a special part of the earth, okay? It's not common. And that's what happened when Yehovah created man in the first place. He brought him from the ground, and then he worked that ground, okay? So I want you to keep these words in your mind, these Hebrew words. You got Shamayim, which is the heavens. Shamayim, Eretz, Adam, Adamah. Okay? It's going to keep popping up in our study. So, of course, it's called High Places and Angry Gods. There's this understanding that the mountains are where heaven meets earth. My sister and her family, they've been in Alberta. They're traveling back today as we speak, and they love their time out there. They try to go, I think they were there once a year or so, right? They head out there. And they send these pictures over. And no matter how rainy or cloudy it is, whatever it is, when they send those pictures of those mountains, man, It's majestic. It is beautiful. And it just kind of takes your breath away. It makes your eyes lift up. And you know, it captures your eye high up and it points right up to the skies. And sometimes the top of the mountain disappears into the clouds, right? And the clouds are in the heavens. Mountains are where the heaven meets earth. Here we have Jehovah God. He takes the man and he causes him to rest in the garden. You say that he created man out, Adam, outside the garden, and then he placed him in the garden. But it's not that he just placed him, he caused him to rest in the garden. Does anybody remember the Hebrew word for rest? Nuah. And that word is used here, nuah. Nuah, it's spelled in Hebrew the exact same way as Noah. All right? Rest. And we have that here. God causes him to rest, and this is that creation in the Garden of Eden to work it. It's also interesting, this other word here. From every tree of the garden, eating, you shall eat. Akol, tokol. Right? It's the same root word, akol, tokol. That means eat. From every tree in the garden, eat. All right? It's a double command. Eat. You know when you go to a Filipino household and they greet you at the door, the minute you're still taking your shoes off and they got a plate, oh come, eat. Right? And it's like they're welcoming you in, and there's something special about that. You know that you're welcome. You know you're going to partake. You're part of what's going on there. All right? And that's what it's like in the garden. God's like, come, Adam, I give you all this stuff, and you can eat from any tree except for that one tree. But he's saying, eat. And his company is God himself. Adam is eating in the presence of God. All right? So there's that word akal. Eat. I love that. That's going to come back to play in our study as well. Eating in the presence of God. There's one more word, I won't go through this whole thing, but what happens is, it's not good for man to be alone, so then God causes Adam to sleep, a deep sleep. Tardema, okay? Tardema, a deep sleep. Now this sort of sleep, it doesn't necessarily mean just like a really good nap, like you close your eyes and you're knocked out to the world. It's also kind of like a trance where you're left just, you can't do anything. So if you go in for surgery, sometimes they could give you something that kind of lets you rest, but you're still awake. And you're aware of what's going on around you. But you're helpless to do anything about it, right? That's kind of what this is. I've heard people say, oh, this was the first surgery in the Bible and all this stuff, right? But what's more interesting here is that tardema, God causes Adam tardema so that God could do a work. Adam played no role in bringing the woman in except that he allowed God to do the work. And God caused Adam to be helpless so that he could do a good work. And then male and female are representative of who God is, the image of God. So Adam had no role in this. He could take no credit for what God did. I want you to remember that word, tardema. Okay? So right there, we're introduced to a lot of concepts that we are going to be seeing throughout the rest of the Torah, especially in the book of Genesis. We came across that word nuach, where God caused Adam to rest in the garden. And that comes back up with Noah. Eat. That comes back up in the temple and in Revelation. And then Tardema, we're going to see where that comes up, also somewhere in the Torah. Everybody good? Who likes to rest? Take a break. Yeah, it's good, right? And rest where you can like enjoy it. You're not like sleeping and you miss it, right? It's like, who of you likes to eat? Yeah. And who here likes a good, deep sleep? I don't have to do anything, right? So there, like, Rest and restoration.
Yeah.
Guys, you know what's awesome about this? That's what Shabbat is supposed to be for us. A time to rest, a time to enjoy and be in the presence of God. Like that's it. Alright? Rest from your work, eat, and trust in Him. Because He's still the one doing the work. Tardema. Of course, when He creates the man and the woman, He blesses them with this blessing, which also sounds like a command. Peru, ureu, umilu, et haaretz. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And we see this when He creates the animals. He blesses them. He blesses mankind with the same blessing. Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. And then we see this blessing come up another time in the Torah. After all the wickedness was done away with, there's Noah and his family. It's interesting. It's Noah, and it's like a new creation, a restart. All right, everything was kind of wiped away, and then God is starting fresh. The waters came, and then He separated the earth from the waters, and here He puts the ark to rest on a mountain. How many of you know that the Garden of Eden is also known to have been on a mountain, where all the 4 rivers flow from that mountain? There's also an understanding that it wasn't just some normal mountain, there's a cosmic mountain. It's a mountain where God was dwelling with Adam and Eve in the garden, in His presence, in that high place. Noah, this first remnant of this humanity as they restart the world, he's on that mountaintop. He received instruction from God, and he rests, and God provided everything that he needed. And he blesses his family, saying, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. In order to fill the earth, you kind of have to sprawl out, don't you? You can't fill the earth and everyone's just on top of each other here, and you're not going anywhere. You're just in one place. Fill the earth, okay? That's where we see that blessing. Let's read Genesis 9, 8 to 17. God spoke to Noah and his sons with him. He said, as for me, I am herewith establishing my covenant with you, with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every wild animal with you, all going out of the ark, every animal on earth. I will establish my covenant with you that never again will all living beings be destroyed by the waters of the flood, and there will never again be a flood to destroy the earth. God added, here is the sign of the covenant I am making between myself and you and every living creature with you for all generations to come. Very repetitive, right? Verse 13, I am putting my rainbow in the cloud. It will be there as a sign of the covenant between myself and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow is seen in the cloud, I will remember my covenant, which is between myself and you and every living creature of any kind. And the water will never again become a flood to destroy all living beings. The rainbow will be in the cloud, so that when I look at it, I will remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of any kind on the earth. God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant which I have established between myself and every living creature on the earth. What's the sign of the covenant? The rainbow. My son brought to my attention, as soon as the calendar changed to June, it's Pride Month. What is the sign of pride? Oh, the rainbow. God is about humility, man is about pride. Man makes it about himself. Pride. It's Pride Month, and they took God's first sign of a covenant that he made with all the earth, where God told them and blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Yet with the rainbow in man's hands, what they have done with it today is symbol for pride. There's no humility, there's no submitting to one another. It's all about yourself. There's no be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Man and woman, God said, be fruitful, multiply and fill the earth. I'm not here to hate on anybody that's living a life a certain way. You all make your choices, but the truth is, God's rainbow, it's his rainbow, his sign of a covenant that he made with all living beings. That includes people that are waving the flag incorrectly. But look at this. How many times, like I said, it was very repetitive, in this passage, when God makes this covenant, he uses the word covenant 7 times in the passage. That is whole, it's complete. It's a reminder of all creation. A covenant that he makes with all creation. 7 times. The rainbow, it's 3 times. It's affirmed 3 times. He's saying, pay special attention to this. My rainbow in the sky, this is the sign of the covenant that I made. And this rainbow is right there over Mount Ararat, the mountain in the Ararat region where Noah's ark rested. Where heaven meets earth. God and men. And then, of course, they didn't sprawl out and fill the earth. We know Tower of Babel, right? Here we have Genesis 11, verses 1 to 9. The whole earth used the same language, the same words. It came about that as they traveled from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and lived there. They said to one another, come, let's make bricks and bake them in the fire. So they had bricks for building stone and clay for mortar. Then they said, come, let's build ourselves a city with a tower that has its top reaching up into heaven, so that we can make a name for ourselves. Pride. In the heavens, and not be scattered all over the earth. Verse 5, Adonai came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. Adonai said, look, the people are united. They all have a single language, and see what they're starting to do. At this rate, nothing they set out to accomplish will be impossible for them. Come, let's go down and confuse their language, so that they won't understand each other's speech. So from there, Adonai scattered them all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. For this reason, it is called Babel, confusion. Because there, Adonai confused the language of the whole earth, and from there, Adonai scattered them all over the earth. Haaretz. And he's talking about all the people here, and he refers to the people as Haaretz, the earth. It looks less like the Leaning Tower of Pisa and more like a... Say it again?
Cigarette.
More like a ziggurat. Not a cigarette. Cigarette. Okay, so wide base with a whole city base going up and higher and very wide, and it's able to house everybody. You know, did you guys hear about this other project that was imagined and dreamed but is now stopped? The Tokyo Tower of Babel. They actually named it the Tokyo Tower of Babel. It was designed to be 10 kilometers high. It was meant to replace the city of Tokyo. They put the bids in, it was all there, everything was set. However, in 2025, toward the end of the year, they had another meeting. They had already started doing some of the groundwork for this big project. It would have cost them pretty much their nation's their GDP, right? Like, it would cost everything. It was supposed to replace Tokyo. This building would be 10 times taller than Dubai's Burj Khalifa, the tallest building that now stands. 12 times higher. Okay. The reason that they stopped the construction is because the population of Tokyo is rapidly declining, and there would be no more need for the city to be replaced this way. By the time they would be able to finish it, there would be nobody to live in it. So they actually put an end to it. This is the tallest building that stands now. Burj Khalifa, right? And that's the Tokyo Tower of Babel. Hey, there's the Empire State Building, remember that moment? I loved when we were little going to New York and we would see these huge skyscrapers in Chicago, and we'd go to all these buildings and the CN Tower downtown, and you're like, hey, check this out, the CN Tower looks so pretty now. It used to be the tallest thing downtown. But all across the world, different countries are building taller buildings, and trying to make a name for themselves. It's a symbol of power and wealth. All right? They're making a name for themselves. This is their Shem. And they want these towers to reach as high to the heavens as possible. How tall was the Tower of Babel? It doesn't tell us exactly in the Bible alone that we have. In the book of Jubilees, it gives us some other writings, and some of the other sages have given some information. But it would have been about 8,150 feet, as tall as a Big Valley. It's 1.5 miles tall. Okay? Versus the current standing building. They got pretty high. They were being successful enough that God had to stop them. But there's this idea of going up to the mountains, going up to the high places. And that's where the gods dwell. And if we get up there, we make a name for ourselves. We will be mighty, right? And the gods there, people started to think that gods, they must be angry with us. All right? It didn't rain. We have no rain for our crops. So maybe we have to start bringing things, gifts, and offerings, and sacrifice things to these gods so that they would have some mercy on us, that they would help us. So they go and they offer some of their finest crop, and they think, okay, maybe this will be good. Remember Cain and Abel? All right? So they bring that, and they think, maybe this will be good, and the rain still doesn't come. Oh no, we have to bring something more valuable. Maybe we'll bring some of our livestock, right? Let's find the best of our livestock, the healthiest, most robust animals, and let's bring those before our gods. Maybe they will have mercy on us and give us the rain, give us the crop that we need. And they're not sure, like maybe they got a little bit of rain, but it wasn't enough. They're like, maybe we're appeasing our gods. Maybe they need something more from us. So then they start to slit their wrists and sacrifice their own blood. And dance around and make a fool of themselves before their gods. We saw that happen in part of the scriptures, right? And when it got really to a point where they were bringing their own children, the thing that they valued the most, and they would bring their own children to these gods and sacrifice them, leaving them to die before these gods up in the mountain. The Incas, the Greeks, the Romans, like everybody had these ritual sacrifices that they were doing. This, in the Incas, they had the Papacocha ritual. And they would bring their children up high. They would bind them and wrap them up and bind them and give them herbs so that it takes away some of the trauma, I guess, of what they're going to experience. And the way that they be sacrificed as they bring them up, it might be a blow to the head. It might be they bind them and then they're kind of sedated and then they're left there to freeze. All right, there are different ways that these children were sacrificed to the gods of the Incas. And there have been some researchers that went up there and found all the bodies of these young children. Bound up, frozen. Some still frozen up in the mountains. If it wasn't human sacrifice, they would bring the Greeks. They were known for their animals. They would bring their most robust animals, all right, the healthiest, the biggest ones. They would decorate their horns with some paintings, you know, like ladies painting their nails. They'd give a nice painting on the horn job. They would put wreaths on their animals. And then bring it up to the altar, and there's this whole procession, and everybody sees the big strong bulls or whatever it is that they're bringing before them, all dressed up and beautiful, and everybody's celebrating and clapping. And then when the animal finally gets to the altar, the person conducting the ceremony would pour water on the animal's head in order to make the animal nod. And that's the animal's way of agreeing to be the sacrifice to the gods. So they're manipulated to say, yes, I will be sacrificed. And then they would slit their throats and let the blood flow, and the blood flowing would be representative of this is how sincere we are. Different cultures, different things, different altars, but most of them were all up high in the high places. there would be a procession up the hill so everybody could see they're going to meet with the gods. The gods are going to be appeased. No matter what the offering was that they were bringing it up to appease the angry gods so they could get what they want. How many of us come before God? We might not go up to a mountain, but we're lifting up our prayers. And we're asking God for certain things. And we're not sure if God hears us. So we start to make some deals. Okay, maybe if I spend less time doing this, if I manage my money better, if I treated people nicer, maybe if I start doing more, godly things, then maybe God would be pleased and He might start to answer my prayers favorably. Maybe if I give up gambling. Maybe if I give up porn. Maybe if I give up foul language. Maybe if I give up my road rage. God would be more pleased with me. Come on, how many of you have done it? How many of you have bargained with God, trying to make a deal? Yeah? Yeah, come on. If you're not putting your hand up, you're lying. I know. Because our concepts of God, it's like, where do they come from? And these people had no concepts. They had their concepts, but they didn't know the one true God. Right? And here we are saying we know the one true God, but we're still dealing with Him the way that these guys were. Trying to figure it out, trying to see, is God mad? Is He angry? Is Molech bringing their babies before the Molech? The pagan trinity of Baal, Asherah, and Molech. The angry gods. Baal and the Asherah poles, right? That's why all those poles, those high steeples, all the stuff. Why are we putting these high steeples on our churches? Oh, the Asherah poles. Yeah, the high things, right? Just like the status symbols. This is us, the Christian church today. The obelisks. Washington, D.C., the obelisk. Everywhere you go, Eiffel Tower, all these high pointing things. Their mark. We're here. This is us. When you see this, you know that that's where you are. We're here. Making a name for themselves. Some other gods. Here's that question. Why is God so angry in the Old Testament and so loving in the New Testament? Right? Our concept of God, when we read it, He sounds like, why is He killing all these people? Because they disobeyed. Right? And then in the New Testament, it's love, love, and grace, grace. But guys, God is love, and it's always been love, and it's always been grace. And He shows us throughout His scriptures of what He's been doing, how loving He actually is. But it's our perspective, our perception of what love is. And we try to say, well, that doesn't sound loving. Why would God do that? Right? Why would He kill everything that He created? Well, they were utterly wicked. That's a loving thing. God enters the story a different way. While everybody else is shouting up to the mountains, going up the mountains, trying to appease the angry gods, He comes to a guy named Avram. And He says, Lech lecha, go, get yourself out of your country, get yourself out of your father's house. Who was Avram's family? What were they known for? They were idol makers. His father was well known. He traveled the land and create these idols of the gods so that people could bow down to them and have them in their homes. And some of these were like talking idols, right? Like people would go and actually try to talk with these idols. And there was a lot of spirituality involved in these works. They weren't just wooden poles only, right? They were lifeless. But people were having spiritual connections with these totems. Okay? So that was Avram's family. His father was well known through the land. And Yehovah called out to Avram and said, Lech lecha. Genesis 12. Now Adonai said to Avram, get yourself out of your country, away from your kinsmen, and away from your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you are to be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, but I will curse anyone who curses you. And by you all the families of the earth will be blessed. Wow. How old was Abram when Jehovah came to him? Anybody? At this point, when he was called, he was about 75. How old are you? he's about Avram's time, right? So imagine God calling him Rolly. Now, at that age. 78 by tradition, 75, 78. So he was about there. He was in his 70s when Jehovah called him. Get yourself out from your father's house. He had no children of his own. He was still along with his father, doing what his father did, supporting his father, because he didn't marry and have his own family. Like, he didn't have a family. His wife was Sarah, his sister. Sarah. Ew. You don't marry your sister, right? Like, you got a question?
Yes. So Abraham, before he was born, how did he know God? His voice, his presence, who was he spending time with? Could be Noah or his sons, one of his?
Well, they were alive still, right?
Yeah, they
The
were
people,
still alive.
Shem was still alive.
Yeah, Noah
All
was
right.
still alive. But
So
they
during
know
that
each
time,
other, that he knows the voice of God and his ways, and
I think some of those things were passed down, absolutely, not in the way that we understand today, right? To them, God was still a distant God.
He must have had some
Influence.
regard for our,
A higher power, but everybody did.
yeah.
because his father was making all this other
No, I mean, even without that, even today, some people who said, no, I'm not religious, I'm not like this, but I
But you
recognize.
acknowledge, yeah.
According to Jewish sages, it's understood that when Abraham was supposed to be born, he was a prophesied child, and somehow his mother had sent him away so that he would not be killed. And you think of the time of Yeshua being born, they were looking at stars. Abraham was apparently born under a specific prophetic star, according to Jewish sages. So they sent Abraham away, and like Eliza was saying, alluding to his great-great-great-great-grandfather, Uncle Shem, which is Noah's son, would have understood the priestly methods that were taught up to that point. So it's believed by Jewish sages that when Abraham was young, he was sent away to live with his great-great-grandfather Shem, and would have learned the ways.
And where did Shem learn these things?
And it's believed that that's where he learned the knowledge of Jehovah.
All right, and Noah knew some people from generations, they were all still alive. Methuselah, right, was still there. There for a long time. So imagine when you sit down and hear the stories from your families, from the generations before, it leaves an impression. You learn the stories, you know about your ancestors, right? And these guys, they stayed alive for a long time together. They had a lot of stories to tell. When I get along with just my siblings sometimes, we'll tell stories and, oh, you remember this and that? And then the kids hear us laughing about it. They're learning. So there you have Abraham. He's called out, and God calls him out one night to look at the stars. He's in this meeting place with God. Okay? He hears God's voice call him, Abraham, Abraham. Calls him out. Genesis chapter 15, verses 1 to 6. Sometime later, the word of Adonai came to Abram in a vision. Don't be afraid, Abram. I am your protector. Your guard will be very great, Abram replied. Adonai God, what good will your gifts be to me if I continue childless? Remember, he said you'll be the great nation, right? Many will come. and Eliezer from Damascus inherits my possessions. You haven't given me a child. Abram continued, so someone born in my house will be my heir. But the word of Adonai came to him, this man will not be your heir. No, your heir will be a child from your own body. Then he brought him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars, if you can count them. Your descendants will be that many. He believed in Adonai and accredited it to him as righteousness. It's interesting. Abraham's not on some mountaintop. Yet here's the God of the universe that is meeting him in that plain, wherever he was. And he calls him and says, look up at the sky. Look at the stars. There's a Sumerian sun god, the people that he was coming out from, that was well revered in the land where Abraham was, and the god of the skies, the sun god, right? Shamash was his name. He was called the king, shepherd, light of the world, dispeller of darkness, beneficent judge, and wrathful avenger, healer of the sick, raiser of the dead, and ruler of men. All of the above was said about the Babylonian sun god Shamash over 1,000 years before Christ's supposed time. The Messiah is called Shamash in the Bible, servant or the helper. Remember on the menorah, there's a Shamash, the candle that lights the others, right? The light that lights the others, the Shamash. And God's taking one of their gods, the God over the skies, the light of the world, right? And he is changing that. Through my covenant with Abraham, and then Isaac and Jacob, and the people of Israel, through my covenants with them, these gods in the sky, the first thing that was created, right? Light from darkness, the first thing hung in the sky with the sun, moon, and stars, the first of creation before mankind was there. And God is taking back his name. He's taking back his reputation. No, some sun god will not take my place. As it is up in the stars, he brings Abraham out there and he says, don't pay attention to the sun god. Look what I can do. Look what I will do. Just like he did with Adam. It's not good for you to be alone, but you don't have to do anything about it. You just rest in that deep sleep and watch what I can do. Creates the woman, and then he goes, woman, because God did such a good job, right? Genesis 15, 7 to 11. Then he said to him, I am Adonai who brought you out from Ur-Kasdim to give you this land as your possession. Isn't it funny that Yehovah always presents himself, I am the God that brought you out of Egypt, and here he's saying to Abraham, I am Adonai who brought you out from Ur-Kasdim to give you this land as your possession. He replied, Adonai, God, how am I to know that I will possess it? He answered him, bring me a 3-year-old cow, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a dove, and a young pigeon. He brought him all these, cut the animals in two, and placed the pieces opposite each other, but he didn't cut the birds in half. Birds of prey swooped down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. The birds of prey coming to take away the things for this covenant. All right? They wanted to make sure this covenant didn't happen, but Abram was driving them away. It's like when the evil spirits don't want you to be coming closer to God, coming to a greater revelation of God. They don't want you to hear God's voice or see what God's going to do. They try to come and distract you with those birds of prey. The birds and the fish remind us of the spirit beings. Okay? But there's that question where Abram says, how am I to know? Just like those people bringing up their sacrifices to the mountain. How do I know if this is enough? How do I know if this will please the gods? How do we know if he's going to give us anything? It was a complete guessing game. It was a big gamble. They were giving up things and things. They just kept throwing good things, the most valuable things, and people and animals to their gods, not knowing what they would get back. Abram wasn't on a mountain, but he asked God, how will I know? That word know in Hebrew, yada. Yada. It's like when Adam and Hava first had relations with each other. It said that the man knew his wife, Yada, and she conceived. It's this very intimate, experiential, active thing to know. It's not just knowing about theoretically. It's not just knowing about God, but it's about to know God. At this point, Abram knew that Jehovah was the one that brought him out from Ur Kasdim, right? He sustained him this whole time. He gave him a promise. I'm giving this land. But how will I know that you will give this land? Yada. There he is, driving away the birds of prey. Verse 12. As the sun was about to set, a deep sleep, Tardema, fell on Abram. Horror and great darkness came over him. Adonai said to Abram, know this for certain, your descendants will be foreigners in a land that is not theirs. They will be slaves and held in oppression there 400 years. But I will also judge that nation, the one that makes them slaves. Afterwards, they will leave with many possessions. As for you, you will join your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. Only in the 4th generation will your descendants come back here, because only then will the Amori be ripe for punishment. Tardema. A great terror comes over him. He can't move. He can't do anything. He's left to just receive the word from God. Pay attention, he's saying. Don't be busy. Be still. Pay attention. Tardema. Know for certain. Right? He wants to make his point clear. The other gods didn't let their people know. It was a guessing game the complete time, right? But here, Jehovah is making sure that his words are heard. Know for certain your descendants will be foreigners in this land. Right? They went to Egypt for 100 years, and of course everything happened exactly the way that Jehovah said it would. Okay? Verse 17. After the sun had set and there was thick darkness, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch appeared, which passed between these animal parts. That day Adonai made a covenant with Abraham. I have given this land to your descendants, from the valley to Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River, the territory of the Keni, the Kenizi, the Kadmoni, the Hitti, the Prizi, the Rephaim, the Amori, the Kenani, and the Gerashi, and the Yebuzi. So all the nations there, the territory, all those people, he's giving them that land to his descendants. It's not even to him. Here Abraham is leaving his father, right, and their good name, all right, taking his sister wife and going around, not sister wife, like taking his wife who's his sister. And here they are, and he's like, God, how will I know? How will I know? And then God does this. What is this about a smoking fire pot and flaming torch that appears and passes through the cut up animal pieces? It's interesting to know. Jehovah never told Abram what to do with those animals. He just said, bring those animals to me. Go collect these animals. And then we're told that he proceeds to cut them up and separate them that way. Because he understood a covenant was about to be made. So he sets it up. He comes in faith knowing that God is going to do this thing because he's calling these animals. And God accepts what Avram does. He's speaking his language. Remember, this is what was done. This is how they literally cut a covenant. All right? When they make the agreement, they're literally cutting a covenant, and they cut the animals in half. And then the blood that's spilled there, they walk through it. But there are two different types of treaties or cutting of a covenant that existed. Okay? The parity treaty, this is where both parties are equal, and it's ratified through a ceremony of cutting of animals, two sides, and then walking down the blood path. And in this agreement, as they walk up that path to make the covenant, they're saying, you could do to me what we did to these animals if either one of us breaks the covenant. If you break the covenant, then I could do to you what we did to these animals. If I break the covenant, you could do to me what we did to these animals. And they're coming in agreement, walking down that path, equal parties. Then we have the suzerain vassal treaty. It's between a greater and a lesser party. The greater party would set the terms, and it would be only the lesser party that would walk through the path of blood if it was ratified through the cutting of animals. So they had to come into agreement with the terms set out by the greater party. In Jeremiah 34, verse 18, it said, as for the men who violated my covenant, which they made in my presence when they cut the calf in two and passed between its parts. This acknowledges that that's how the covenants were done and carried out. So here, when we look at the animal parts that are slaughtered on both sides, who would you say that God and Abraham were equal? No, they didn't have equal parts. Who would you say was greater? Jehovah was great, right? And the lesser party would be Abraham. With the suzerain vassal treaty, here's a hungry one. With the suzerain vassal treaty, the greater makes the terms, the lesser one would walk through. However, what did Jehovah do to Abraham? Deep sleep. Tardema. Helpless, he sits there and he gets God's word, and then he sees a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch. This is God's representing himself through these items, passing through, moving over the path of blood before Abraham. So who's the one that's coming into terms with this? The greater party that sets out the terms, and then he walks it himself. If this covenant is broken, then you could do to me what has been done to these animals. It's a prophecy pointing straight to Messiah. Where the blood is shed because the covenant was broken. Flaming torch and smoking pot. Interesting, the cloud. We see this somewhere else in the Torah. As the Israelites are being led through the wilderness by a cloud, pillar of cloud, and a pillar of fire, by day and by night. Jehovah's presence with his people, upholding the covenant, guiding them this way. And because he knew that his people would be breaking covenant, he was making a way that they could have peace with him. And he could still dwell with them in their midst the way that he dwelt with Adam in the Garden of Eden. He's trying to restore the relationship between man and God.
When Yeshua says in the New Testament, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, he's alluding to this whole dynamic here. Something that's covered in smoke, you can't see it. It's shrouded. It's hidden. That's the Father. He's described as this unapproachable light. You cannot see him, but yet he sends a visible representation of himself. A flaming torch. We can't see what's in the smoking pot. It's hiding something. But the flaming torch is clearly illuminating something. And Yeshua declares, I am the light of the world. No one comes to the Father except through me. So we were already seeing so much of who Jehovah was long before the New Testament ever came, long before Yeshua ever came. This is all testifying of him.
And this is all at the beginning of the Bible. Like everything we need to know about God's plan of salvation, all the little details, all the little hints and clues, it was all written here in Genesis alone. All right. I think that's pretty cool. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. That's in the New Testament, James chapter 4, verse 8. I love that. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. This is how he operates. This is who he is. You don't have to go find him in some far off distant place because he's there. He's ever present. All right? He's always there. And all you have to do is turn your eyes upon him. Turn your heart, your focus toward him. And you'll meet him. The key promise that if you seek him, you'll find him. To know him, to yada him in an intimate sort of way, it's not just learning things about him. It's actually experiencing life with him. To know that way, it's a experiential knowing, yada. You can't say you know God because you heard his name said a certain way. Oh, well, you pronounce it this way. That's how I know that I know him better than you. I hate that. I hate the arguments going on, especially in the Hebrew Roots community right now. His name's like this, and you have to say it this way, or what's the name? There was a movement where they said, if you don't call him by this name, then you don't really know him. What a horrible thing, right? They learned a lot of things about God, they don't know him. They haven't experienced his grace, his goodness, his faithfulness. They haven't experienced his provision, his patience with them, his mercy. How many of you yada God in some sort of way today? Has God made himself known to you in any sort of way? Have you experienced things in your life where you know God was working? He was meeting you where you were. He was revealing his truth to you. He was letting his spirit come to your life. He was reviving a dead spirit in you and putting life in you. Do you yada Yehovah? It's not enough that you go to Bible class and just learn things about him. It's not enough that you just learn things about his word. I mean, that's a good starting point. But you got to go beyond that. It's like if someone's trying to set you up. Sorry, it's bothering me. It's distracting. Flee. Someone's trying to you're a guy and someone's trying to set you up with this girl. And you learn everything about the girl, and you look at her pictures, and you know what she likes, and you hear all the stories about her, and then you might have even heard her voice on the phone, but you've never gone out with her. You never shared a meal with her. You never got to learn the little nuances of her behavior and what it's revealing. You never got to feel her embrace. You never held her hand. You haven't had a knowing experience with her. Could you say that you know the person? No. They say you never really know a person until you've lived with them. Have you heard that one? Yeah. That's why a lot of people don't get married anymore. They live together before they get married, and they're like, nope, this ain't happening. We're not getting married anymore. Can't live with you, right? That test drive. But what about those that didn't get that opportunity? They're married already, they never lived together, and then you finally live together. The test drive. Test drive. You don't want to buy a car until you've driven it. Right? You need to know what it feels like before you invest more. That's why there's that taste and see that the Lord is good. Nobody else could taste that except for you. Nobody else could eat your food for you. I could tell you what this cornbread tastes like, and I'll describe it, but that's my experience of it. You might experience it completely differently. How do you know God? It doesn't change who he is, but it changes how, when you understand how you relate to him. All right, in Genesis 17, we have this chiasm. Remember the literary structure of chiasm? So the structure of this one is AB, AB. Okay? There's a point A, point B, and then a mirror, point A, point B. Okay? If you read this on your own, you can see the whole thing, Genesis chapter 17. But let's see what happens there in the first point. In verses 1 through 8, there's a divine address and promise. God reveals himself as El Shaddai. It's funny, El Shaddai is God Almighty, all right? Or this great God, all right? There's different ways to look at Shad and Dai and Shadu, where the name comes from. In Akkadian, they understand Shaddai to come from the word Shadu, which is the mountain, the god of the mountain, right? Or the Almighty God. The mountains are great, or whatever. So there's a play across different languages for El Shaddai. He demands blamelessness. He changes Abraham's name to Abraham and promises him nations. Okay? Part 2, in verses 9 to 14, the term is the sign of circumcision, the physical mandate. Every male must be circumcised as an everlasting covenant marker for all the seed of Abraham, all of his male descendants. Circumcision, a sign in the flesh. Okay? And then we see in the following verses 15 to 22, again, the divine address and promise. God reiterates the promise and changes Sarai's name to Sarah and promises the birth of Yitzhak, okay? Their own son, not Hagar's son. Okay? And then part B, there's that mirror. There's a sign of the covenant and then obedience to circumcision. The literal execution, where Abraham promptly obeys the covenant marker for every male in his household. That was a bloody day. I can't imagine. And I would think it was crazy. These are his servants, his slaves. He only had two sons, right? Ishmael was circumcised along with Abraham the same day, right? And all the servants in the house, they all had to get circumcised. But there's a chiasm of divine revelation. We see these sort of patterns continue to work in our Bible study throughout the Torah. Where God sets the terms and then man follows. Okay? There are different sacrifices to the Lord. I know we've been doing our studies in Deuteronomy, Leviticus. There's a lot of these sacrifices. There are 5 types of sacrifices to the Lord. I'm not going through all of them today, but take a picture, look them up. There's the Olah, the Micha, the Asham, the Zeva, Shalamim, the peace offering, and then the Hatat, right? Korban Hatat, the sin offering. So there are different types of offering that are made. However, the first 2, the Olah and Mincha, you could not do without those. Those had to be there. This was a way of coming close to God before you could ask anything else, before you could really be in His presence, okay? The burnt offering and the grain offering. This is not unsimilar to the way that other people worship their gods. They bring their grains, right? The burnt offerings. A fragrant aroma rises to the heavens and appeases the God. That does the same thing that Yehovah required of his people in the tabernacle, of the Levites, okay? He's speaking their language, using things they were familiar with, so that they know that they are interacting with their God. Using some of their things that they were already doing, he uses that as an instruction and says, you don't have to guess what you're going to sacrifice to me. I'll tell you exactly what it is I expect you to sacrifice. I'll tell you exactly what offerings I will accept. There's no guessing game here. So just come and obey and we're good. That's it. And he's drawing them close to him, inviting them to come close and not be afraid. It's interesting though, you guys know this story, we've gone over this one, the binding of Yitzhak. Genesis 22. After these things, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, and he answered, here I am, Hineni. He said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Yitzhak, and go to the land of Moriah. There you are to offer him as a burnt offering on a mountain that I will point out to you. Okay. Sacrifice your son as a burnt offering. Where? On a mountain that I will point out to you. So there was no mountains with Abraham and God up to this point, right? But there's something big that's going to happen. And Abraham knows this. Wait, now this God that's been talking to me and revealing things, he finally gives me this promised son, my heir, the one that's going to be the key to all my descendants. I'll be the father of many nations through my own flesh and blood. And now I have to kill him? What? what else did God do for Abraham that made him up to this point? I mean, God saved Abraham through many questionable times when he entered different lands. He gave him favor, he blessed him, he gave him lots of riches and spoils, all right? He provided for him these many years that he followed. Oh, how old do you think Yitzhak was when this happened?
30, I believe it was 30 or
30? How old was his mother, Sarah, when she gave birth to him? She was 90. 10 years younger than Abraham. There's a 10-year gap, okay? How old was she when she died? Somebody Google it. Somebody Google it. Sarah, I think she was like 127? What was it? 20? Yeah, 127, I think. So she gives birth to Isaac when she's 90. She dies about the same time that this whole thing happens, at 127. So Isaac would have been about 37 years old. He's a grown man. Right? 127 according to the tradition. Okay. So you could do math. It doesn't always tell you, oh, this is how old Isaac was, right? But you could do the math when you read the Bible. Okay. Here Isaac is 37 years old, going up the mountain with his father. Avram got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him. Together with Yitzhak, his son, he cut the wood for the burnt offering, departed, and went toward the place where God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Avram raised his eyes and saw the place in the distance. Avram said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go there, worship, and return to you." Avram took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on Yitzhak, his son. Then he took in his hand the fire and the knife, and they both went on together. Yitzhak spoke to Avram, his father. "My father," he answered, "Hineni beni, here I am, my son. I see the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" Avram replied, "God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." And they both went on together. You see that they both went on together. They both went on together. 37-year-old son with his elderly father, 137 at this point.
It's interesting, the renditions of Abraham and Isaac going up to the mountain must have been taken from verse 5. It says, "I and the boy will go there."
We'll go there.
It's a 37-year-old boy.
Yeah. 37-year-old boy.
Yeah.
call them boys and they're really grown men.
Grown man, but he wasn't a man with his own family yet. He was still in his father's house. He was still serving alongside his father, just like Abraham was still serving alongside with his father, right?
Sometimes I call you my boy.
Well, I'm still
Only
with you.
sometimes.
But you see that father-son.
They'll always be
You see the father-son dynamic there. And working together to obey God's command. They're going to obey God's. How do we know that it's not only Avram that's obeying? A 37-year-old Yitzhak would be able to "No, Dad, why are you binding me up? Why are you tying me? You're crazy." He obeyed too.
And
He
carries
trusted,
wood.
and he carried the wood.
And he carried the wood.
He carried the wood up the hill to his own sacrifice. Another pointing to Messiah. Right? You see that? Another interesting point here, guys. Here in verse 7, this is the only recorded conversation that exists between Abraham and Isaac. In the entire Torah, these are the only words that are spoken. My father, Hineni beni. He calls on his father, and his father says, "Here I am." my son. Right before the sacrifice. And they both went on together. Let's continue, verse 9. They came to the place God had told him about, and Avram built the altar there, set the wood in order, bound Yitzhak his son, and laid him on the altar on the wood. Then Avram put out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. But the angel of Adonai called to him out of heaven, Avram, Avram! He answered, Hineni, here I am. He said, don't lay your hand on the boy. Don't do anything to him. For now I know that you are a man who fears God, because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Avram raised his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in the bushes by its horns. Avram went and took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering in place of his son. Avram called the place Adonai Yireh, Jehovah Jireh. Adonai will see to it. Adonai provides. As it said to this day, on the mountain Adonai is seen. Jehovah Yireh. When God provides, he is seen. Okay. The other people going up to their gods in the mountains, they don't see their gods. They have the idols, right? And they don't feel that they're seen by God. Right? They're offering the most valuable thing. Here is Abraham offering the promised son of everything that Jehovah had ever promised him, and he's about to put that out there. Ready to give it all up. And Jehovah is revealed. He is seen as he sees Abraham. When God sees your heart, and you come before him and you let God see your heart, friends, that's when you start to know him. You stop hiding. You stop hiding. What happened in the garden with Adam and Eve after they ate the fruit? They hid. And God says, stop hiding. Come close. It's okay. I will provide. How many of you have discovered Jehovah to be a provider? Yeah. You're here today, man. I know he's providing. Even if you might be in a season of lack right now. Oh, you know that he has provided. And not just financially. He provides your health. You get up every day. Even if you have bad health some days, you know what? You have enough that you can get up. Right? And he is still good. He sustains. He's the giver of life. He's the sustainer of life. And he is the only one that can take it away. Yeah. Back up. Yeah, I'm back.
And so, what struck me as well is that 7, it says, spoke to Abraham, his father, my father, and he answered, here I am, my son. So that's the meaning. And so, as a human being, when we are stressed, challenged, like I'm about to sacrifice my son, and then my son is calling me like my father, oh, I don't have time for you right now. I'm about to sacrifice.
You're so focused. You don't want to. The last thing you want to hear is your son say, "Dad."
I don't want to hear your voice right now that you're my only son and I'm about to sacrifice you. Like, what is he feeling in that moment?
Yeah.
As a father, that's a representation of God to us as well. That in spite of that situation, is my son, I'm here. Like Hineni.
Yeah.
So that's our Father.
He could have told him, shut up, I'm focusing.
Yeah, exactly.
I got it, let's just do this.
Yeah.
Like, be
And
quiet, this is too hard.
It's
Yeah.
just mind-blowing when you actually like immerse and study. And we as a human being, imagine
Sure.
if Chris would walk his only son to the mountain and sacrifice. Look, Dad, where's some animal? Are you?
I think when we try to relate to the scriptures, and we would, of course, take what we would do, what we might say,
Yeah.
but then it's also important when we read the scriptures to see what is written. to see how does this all unfold? What does it reveal about who Abraham is and what was in his heart in that moment? Yeah.
It's revealing God's heart
Yeah.
towards us, and then the son, Isaac, is pointing to Jesus Christ as well. But
Obedience,
that's how
yeah.
we can see God's heart in the prayer. He's always present.
Sure.
He knows us. He provides as long as we just have faith and trust.
And he provides because he provides.
Right.
Regardless of whether we have the faith or not. We get to experience it when we have the faith. Right? But when we're doubting and we don't believe it's him and we're skeptical, no. He gets no credit.
Right.
Well, it's just coincidence, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Apparently, during that time, child sacrifice was being practiced by other pagan nations.
Child sacrifice.
Child sacrifice, yes.
Yeah.
But we also don't know how old they were, you know.
Yeah.
But we
I don't
know
think
that
they were
young.
37.
They were young.
Yeah, they were young.
That it probably wasn't too surprising to Abraham that he would be called to, God would call him to sacrifice his son. But what must have hit him was that, are you kidding? You promised me him, and then
Do I have to have another one?
God didn't even cross his mind, you know.
Yeah. Who knows, right? Yeah. Well, what I love about this passage is what it does reveal about our Father's heart and how he uses this relationship between Abraham and Isaac. Oh, let's finish the passage. The angel of Adonai called to Abraham a second time out of heaven and said, I have sworn by myself, says Adonai, that because you have done this, because you haven't withheld your son, your only son, I will most certainly bless you, and I will most certainly increase your descendants to as many as there are stars in the sky or grains of sand on the seashore. Your descendants will possess the cities of their enemies, and your descendants, by your descendants, all the nations of the earth will be blessed, because you obeyed my order. So Abram returned to his young men. They got up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham settled in Beersheba. So,
Tim,
Yeah.
I thought in the beginning God already promised it. But in this passage here, it's kind of like, oh, now because you did that, it is going to happen. Or is it like, am I reading it wrong, or?
no, not terribly wrong, but he's reiterating his point. The promise still stands, and now the promise is realized.
I just thought because you obeyed my order.
Yeah.
Because he already did previously.
Well, that all the descendants of all the nations of the earth will be blessed. That goes beyond
Gotcha.
even more than just having
Gotcha.
fathers of the nations. He's going further. He's going to bless the world.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Good question. It's interesting though, because Eden, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. Right? Noah, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. And here, because you obeyed, wow, check out this blessing. You will be fruitful, you will multiply, you will fill the earth, and they will be blessed because of you.
What if we fail it? What if we fail the test?
I don't think we'd be reading about it now if you do. But yeah, good question. If he failed it, I think God still makes a way.
He always has an alternate plan B.
Always has contingencies plans.
What's interesting also here is that, of course, we don't take it literally because obviously the total population of the earth is just in the billions, and the grains of the sand and the seashore, that's like enormous.
Remember this. I don't think Abraham would have failed this test because Jehovah knew Abraham. He knew
I
him,
know already.
right? And that's why he called him to do this at this point in time. Right? Think about this. If I just want to go back to this slide. Jehovah wouldn't break the covenant. He wouldn't.
Made it with himself.
He made it with himself, and he wouldn't be the one to break this covenant. It would be the people that break it, and then he's the one that takes it. But he wouldn't do it himself. He's a covenant maker, a promise keeper. He is faithful to his word. He would not do this. He would not go back on his own word. He's a good and righteous and fair, just king.
This covenant that Jehovah made with himself, where men had no part in it, I think this is what it means that it's all about him.
It was a covenant with man, but he took it all.
But there's no
The responsibility was all on
Man
him.
had no part in it.
Yeah.
Just not true.
The onus was on him. Crazy, huh? Right, but there it is. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. You've been blessed, and you'll be a blessing to others. Right? That's what it is. And he sent him to a mountain in the Moriah region. And years later in the Psalms, we realize that's where Solomon built his temple. Right? David and Solomon, the kings of Israel, they built the temple on that mountain where the Binding of Yitzhak occurred. So that was a mountaintop experience, a spiritual transformative thing where God says, pay attention to this, where heaven and earth meet, come to this mountaintop, and that's where a lot of crazy things happen. It's up on a mountaintop, right? Golgotha, where Yeshua was crucified, it's outside, but in the same region, also on a elevated peak, where Yeshua was crucified, another transformative spiritual thing. Take a picture of this one. This is for your own study. Your homework is to go home, study this. Mountains in the Bible. What happened on these mountains at these times? All right, this is a fun one. You just look up some of the verses, read around the verses for the fuller context. And at all these times, God reveals himself. Call it the cosmic mountain, Garden of Eden, the high place where God was with man, right? We just read about the Binding of Yitzhak. Exodus, what happens there? Mount Sinai. God speaks his words, his 10 words, and then gives his law as Torah. All right? At Mount Sinai. So God's instructions. They received instructions in Eden. Abraham received instructions from God. Moshe received the instructions from God for all of Israel. Right? So you have all these things. It's in the temple where God meets with his people with the sacrifice rituals and everything, all the offerings, so that they could draw close to him. That happens in the temple. And the temple, remember, was riddled with all the symbolism from the garden. The temple garden. All right? Where God dwells with his people. At Mount Sinai, what happened with this after they received the law and they came into agreement with Jehovah? He invites 70 elders of Israel to come and eat at the base of the mountain in the presence of God. Eat. Eat, eat. Just like he said to Adam. Eat, eat. In the presence of God. Alright. Jehovah reveals himself with Elijah, remember, against the prophets of Baal. Right? And they're calling out to Baal, oh, come down, bring fire, and they cut themselves and they dance and they shout and scream, and Baal doesn't answer them. Right? These are the prophets of Baal. And then Elijah goes and pours the water and sets it all up, and God sends down fire falling from heaven, and God heard him, and he reveals himself. So that was another mountain experience, right? And then we read about these things here in the New Testament as well. You guys go study that. Mountains in the Bible are a big thing. Pay attention every time you come across a mountain in the Bible. John 4:19-24. Sir, this is the woman at the well. Sir, I can see that you are a prophet, the woman replied. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you people say that the place where one has to worship is in Jerusalem. Yeshua said, Lady, believe me, the time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You people don't know what you are worshiping. We worship what we do know, because salvation comes from the Jews. But the time is coming, indeed, it's here now, when the true worshipers will worship the Father spiritually and truly, for these are the kind of people the Father wants worshiping him. God is spirit, and worshipers must worship him spiritually and truly. God is not some far-off, distant God. He's not a locale God where you have to go to church to meet with him. Okay? You don't have to go to confession to meet with him. You don't have to do the rosary to meet with him. You don't have to do all these other rituals to meet with him. He told us how to meet with him, how to draw near to him. All right? I won't spell it out for you. You go study your Bible. You find that out yourself. All right? But here are some verses we want to close with. Acts 17:27. God did this so that the people would look for him and perhaps reach out and find him altogether. In fact, he is not far from each one of us. Psalm 145:18. Jehovah is close to all who call on him, to all who sincerely call on him. Jeremiah 23:23. Am I God only when near? Asks Jehovah, and not when far away? He's still God. Deuteronomy 4:7. For what great nation is there that has God as close to them as Jehovah our God is, whenever we call on him? How do you draw near to God? Call on him first. Yitzhak, what did he do? My father? My father. Right? Hineni. Oh, another important thing. In that passage, how many times did we see Hineni? 3 times. When you see those 3, the covenant rainbow, 3 times, right? Hineni, 3 times. In every story writing, that 3 is very important. On the 3rd day, bring 3 rams, bring 3 bulls, bring 3. Did you see that in the covenant making? There's a pattern of 3. Okay? Let's pay attention. There's another completing thing there, but it's like, watch what happens with this 3. It's not the end, but it's important. It's a sign. The sign of Jonah, 3 days in the belly of the earth, 3 days and 3 nights. Yeshua rested in the tomb 3 days and 3 nights. And watch what happens next. It's a sign. 3 is for the sign. 7 is the completion. All right? Whew. I don't know. I had fun with this. There's so much more I wanted to share, but I knew it would be like 3 hours longer. And I love this. I am God and not man, the Holy One in your midst. This verse here in Hosea 11:9, he's saying, I am God and not man. I'm in control. I'm not an angry man. I'm a just, merciful, loving, gracious God. I'm not like man who is angry, who is wishy-washy, who changes. I'm not out to get you. That's the distinction he's making. If you read it in its context, this is a reassuring passage that he is God. He is in control. He is not man. He is the Holy One in your midst. All right? He is present, friends. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. May the grace of our Lord Yeshua and the shalom of Jehovah our Father be with us all.